Welcome, Vault Dwellers. My name is Nacho Bidness, and there's Bob. We're at my challenge settlement, and out of character today because I wanted to show off something that I eventually had to scrap, because this little bug light was, I thought, a really fun and unique idea, but it was too intensive on resources and settlement size to really make it appropriate for my challenge settlement. But I thought it was such a unique idea that I wanted to do a little tutorial video on it, just to show other people how to build it. Hopefully somebody else will find a use for it in maybe one of their settlements. So if you're interested in how to make this thing, go ahead and stick around for the tutorial. So it's kind of a rainy day, but we're going to be working inside, so it should be fine. Let's do some prep work before we actually get started with this build. I've got all the lights turned on around here, because if you use my way of setting up lights on different circuits, you want to do any electrical work with all the lights on. That way you don't accidentally reassign any lights while you're doing your wiring. Now, I've also got some interval switches and delayed off switches set up here and pre-programmed, mainly so you don't have to sit there and watch me go through programming those on the terminal. There are a lot of great tutorials on YouTube on how to do stuff like that, so I won't waste your time with that. I've also set up a switch and exited the build mode and turned the switch to the off position, because I wanted to do all the wiring for the contraption itself with the power off. And finally, I've got 2 cycling lights set up. One of them is a dim blue and the other is a bright blue, and that's what gives us the low level illumination, and then we can flash the bright blue one on. So without further ado, let's get into the build mode. Now, while I wait for this to load, I wanted to mention the Settlement Evolution Challenge. The other YouTubers that are doing it, most of them have very small audiences like myself, and there is some really fantastic content that's coming out of those. Some of them are funny, some of them are serious, but they're all really good, and I highly encourage you to go check those out. I will leave a link to a playlist in the video description. So first thing we need is we're going to go into USO, and sorry to PlayStation 4 users, there is going to be one thing that we build here that you probably won't be able to do. So this is probably just going to be for Xbox and PC users. I grabbed that wooden support as a place to hang that light, but I thought it was a little bit too big, so I scaled it down just a little bit. And we'll go ahead and go put this over here, and I'll try and do my best not to make you guys sit through me placing everything perfectly. If you want to see what it looks like when everything is placed real precisely, then you can look at the demo. I'm going to grab this this dim light as the first thing that I want, and put that there. Now you can see that still is kind of floating a little bit, but that's okay, we'll get to that. Next thing that we need is the cage that goes around this bug light, and the first piece of that is in the no snap doors in USO. So we go over here to this jail door, and I like using the swing for this application, and I like putting it so the handle is actually on the inside, so that it's less obvious what this what this cage actually is. We're going to have to scale this down quite a ways. I'm going to scale this down until it's down to the 0.2 scale. Careful with this scaling stuff, because a lot of times the scaled objects retain their original collision, and that means that you can end up with like invisible walls and stuff in your settlements that you didn't actually want. But for a freestanding, for a free hanging structure like that, it's fine. The next thing we need is the jail cell itself, which is under USO and decorations and themes and jail, and there's kind of just barely enough room up here to get that placed down. Let's scale this down. So 0.5, and then just keep, oops, I did not want to do that. So we're going to reset that, and there we go. Scale it down, and scale it down, and exit. And just kind of get this in the general vicinity of where the final position is going to be. Next thing that I want to do is kind of glitch these things together, and that is going to be easiest if we go into Place Anywhere and we turn Global Collision off. And I'm going to do it for the game session because I've got several pieces in a row that I don't want to have to worry about collisions for. So now I can put that inside there and not have it trying to float. I'm going to move that over there out of my way for now, and then just kind of put this cage in, try and get it fairly centered on the light. I don't think I succeeded there. Which way does it need to move? Yeah, that light's way in the corner. There we are. Like I said, not going to try and waste your time with watching me get it. Oh, now it's in the opposite corner. Whatever. You get the idea. And that can go right about there. And there we go. We're going to pretend that that cage is more or less centered on that light for now. And the next thing that we're going to do is, of course, my favorite part, and that's the wiring. Actually, before I do that, a word about Place Anywhere. A lot of times you want to select and deselect the stuff. Otherwise it can tend to look like it's vibrating or something. So just a little trick for that. First thing that we need for wiring is we need a wall conduit. This is going to be just wired into the main switch for the whole settlement here. So I'm just going to wire glitch this over here. And if you don't know how to wire glitch, go watch Dark Dali's video on it. I use that trick all the time. Next thing we need is the switch. So our input power will come to our switch and become our switched power. And so I don't have to wire glitch it. I'm just going to use Place Anywhere, put that switch there. And then I'm going to place that there, and sometimes it helps with Place Anywhere to actually get it close to where you want and then move around a little bit, and now that switch is exactly where I wanted it to be with a lot less fiddling. Actually, now that I think about it, I want to wire to this light, and that means that I need to grab that and grab that and get those out of my way. So this is our dim light, and I want this to go straight to the switch. That way we have some background illumination that is always on. So we just kind of put that out at the end of the support, and we can select and deselect it, and the wire comes back. Try once again to put the cage in more or less the right spot. And yeah. And then we put the door back in more or less the right spot, and we select, deselect, and come on, grab the door. Grab. There's the door. Okay. So now we're going to set up our randomizer that turns the brighter flashes on and off at what at least appears to be a totally random interval. Now I have set these interval switches to be, this one is on for 1 second and off for 2 seconds. And this one is on 1, off 1. And the reason I did that is that it helps with the illusion of randomness if they aren't both on the same timer. Now there is an actual random element to this, but we'll get to that in a second. So first things first, let's hook this interval switch up to power, and then just kind of pop it down out of the way over here. Now the next piece to this are these delayed off switches. I've got this one set to a half a second and this one set to 1/4 second. And the reason for that is that if you look at a real bug light in the real world, they rarely are on for an entire second, and these interval switches, the longest or the shortest time that they can be on is 1 second. So I use this delayed off switch to chop that 1 second signal down to 1/4 second. The next piece here is our short interval switch, and we're just going to put this down here and get some power to it and move it kind of over here for a second. And now's where the real random element comes in, and this is unfortunately something that PS4 users are not going to be able to do. In Advanced Settlement Power, which is one of my absolute favorite mods, there is a random gate, and you can see that the mod author has given us some documentation in the game, and when the bottom is powered, the top has a 50-50 chance of turning on, which is awesome. Means we can have things not look like they're so regular if we don't want. Now the thing about it is that it only takes 1 copper to build, and it produces 1 power, which made it feel like it was just a little bit too close to cheating, in my opinion, for my challenge settlement. I may use things out of Advanced Settlement Power for my challenge, but I'm not going to use anything that actually adds any resources or otherwise kind of messes with the game mechanics. So we're going to take the output of that random gate and wire it to this other delayed off switch that I have set to a 1/2 second interval. And so yeah, that's going to be our little randomizer piece of this contraption. Now, the next thing we need is another wall conduit to serve as kind of a node or an output for our randomizer, and also basically just control all the effects of the machine. So just gonna put this guy right here, and both of these delayed off switches can get wired right to this as the output of our randomizer and our input for the effects. The next piece that we're going to grab is this cycling light. Now, I want that cycling light to be exactly on top of the other cycling light, but trying to do it manually is nearly impossible. So let's show off actually a couple more features of Place Anywhere right now. The first is that I am going to go to Object Properties and disable Object on that door, and I'm going to go to Object Properties and disable Object on the cage itself. That way I can get to that cycling light. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Object Properties and copy paste position. I'm going to copy the position and exit, and now I can paste this exactly on top of that other light, and that way they're exactly in the same spot, and I don't have to monkey around with trying to glitch it into place. So copy and paste. Now we're going to paste position, and you can see that this wire appears to be hanging in space, but if we select and deselect, it updates. And the last bit there is to go back into Place Anywhere and Object Properties, and we're going to turn on those things that we disabled, and there we go. We're almost done. Now, the last thing that I wanted here was I wanted some kind of spark sound effect, and unfortunately there was nothing in the game that I could find that we could easily turn on and off for fractions of a second, but this percussion speaker gives a decent facsimile of that, and so I'm using this. When it's only powered for a fraction of a second, it sounds almost like a spark. And I think this is it. I think we're done with build mode, so I'm going to exit build mode, and I'm going to test and make sure that all my lights still turn off the way that they are supposed to. This is actually another thing. I only have 5 power in the settlement so far, and if I have this door open, I don't have enough power overall to run that little contraption. So one more reason why I just had to abandon the idea. But again, I thought it was too fun to just completely ignore and not do a video on it. So let's test it. Let's turn it on, and you can see the randomizer is going. And in the demo at the beginning, I shoved all this stuff inside of a Nuka-Cola machine just to hide it, but you can leave it out or not. I actually kind of prefer having the stuff out. I like messy wiring, but a lot of people prefer the more neat stuff. So I'm kind of surprised that the dim light is not shining through there. Might have something to do with the order that I copied and pasted the components, but you can see that it's oh I completely missed with the cage. Oh well, you get the idea. And if you thought this was a fun and interesting build, be sure to hit that like button down below. If you want to see more, take a look around my channel. I do a lot of interesting things with electricity in Fallout, and if you want to see more than that, be sure to subscribe. If you didn't like, please tell me why down in the comments so that I can try and do better next time. And until next time, my name is Nacho Bidness, and I'm saying it's a great big wasteland out there. Let's go have fun in it.